A married man was visiting his girlfriend when she requested that he shave his beard. "Oh, James, I like your beard, but I would really love to see your handsome face." James replied, "My wife loves this beard. I couldn't possibly do it. She would kill me." "Oh, please?" the girlfriend asked again in a sexy little voice. "Oh, really, I can't," he replied. "My wife loves this beard," the girlfriend asked once more, and he sighed and finally gave in and shaved his face smooth. That night, James crawled into bed with his wife while she was sleeping. The wife was awakened somewhat, felt his face, and replied, "Oh, Michael, you shouldn't be here. My husband will be home soon." A beautiful woman went up to the bar in a quiet, rural pub. She gestured alluringly to the bartender, who approached her immediately. The woman seductively signaled that he should bring his face closer to hers. As he did, she gently caressed his full beard. "Are you the manager?" she asked, softly stroking his face with both hands. "Actually, no," he replied. "Can you get him for me? I need to speak to him," she said, running her hands beyond his beard and into his hair. "I'm afraid I can't," breathed the bartender. "Is there anything I can do?" "Yes, I need for you to give him a message," she continued, running her forefinger across the bartender's lip and slyly popping a couple of her fingers into his mouth and allowing him to suck them gently. "What should I tell him?" the flustered bartender managed to stammer. "Tell him," she whispered, "there's no toilet paper, hand soap, or paper towels in the ladies' room." Michael and his wife had been married for 35 years, and things were, let's say, a little cold in the bedroom. One day while out shopping, he decided to look for a little outside stimulation. He dropped his wife off at her favorite store and went across the street to the knock shop. He swaggers up to the madam and asks her, "What kind of a service can a fellow get for $50? She snorts derisively and says, "You're not going to get much for $50. All our girls start at $200. Try the place down the street." He goes to the next brothel and again inquires about his chances of moistening his man for $50. That madam tells him, "You're living in the past, old man. You won't get anything for that." Dejected, he goes back to meet his wife at the store. As they're walking out together, the madam from across the street sees them and calls out, "I told you that you wouldn't get much for $50. Grandma Edna got new hearing aids and was thrilled, until she realized they also pick up gossip from 2 tables away. Did you hear Margaret's grandson failed his driving test again? No, but I will now. Edna's new nickname? The surveillance system. Even Alexa's nervous around her. A woman walks in with a huge grin on her face. Her husband asks, "Why are you so happy?" She says, "I'm 45, but my doctor told me that I've the of an 18-year-old. "Oh yeah," quipped her husband. "What did he say about your 45-year-old ass? Your name never came up." A lawyer calls up a plumber to come out to his house. The plumber takes a look and says, "Okay, I can fix it today, and it will be $800. The lawyer raises an eyebrow and asks, "How long will it take?" The plumber responds, "Well, I need about an hour round trip to the supply house for a part, and then it should take me about an hour for the repair." The lawyer smirks and says, "2 hours? For $800. That's $400 per hour. I'm a lawyer and my hourly rate is $350 hour." The plumber nods and says, "Yes, sir, I understand. Why is it you think I gave up my law practice?" Mildred, Dolores, Amurs, and Ethel went to bingo night at the community center. Things got heated. Someone yelled, "Bingo!" But Dolores said, "Not so fast, honey. That G47 was never called. I've been listening like a hawk on espresso." A full-on bingo brawl broke out. Mildred used her purse like a weapon. Ethel flipped a folding chair. Someone called it WrestleMania Senior Edition. In the end, they all shared cookies and apologized. But now they call her Dolores the Destroyer at every game. At Golden Pines Retirement Center, Doris was dating Harold. until he started playing shuffleboard with Mildred. Doris confronted her like it was high school. "I saw him give you his pudding cup. That means something." Now there's a no flirting during bingo rule. Harold just wants peace and mashed potatoes. Tom had been in the liquor business for 25 years. Finally, sick of the stress, he quits his job and buys 50 acres of land in Alaska, as far from humanity as possible. He sees the postman once a week and gets groceries once a month. Otherwise, it's total peace and quiet. After 6 months or so of almost total isolation, someone knocks on his door. He opens it, and a huge bearded man is standing there. "Name's Lars, your neighbor from 40 miles up the road, having a Christmas party Friday night. Thought you might like to come." "About 5 oig." "Great," says Tom. "After 6 months out here, I'm ready to meet some local folks. Thank you." As Lars is leaving, he stops. "Got to warn you, be some drinking." "Not a problem," says Tom. "After 25 years in the business, I can drink with the best of me." Again, the big man starts to leave and stops. "More and likely gonna be some fighting too." "Well, I get along with people. I'll be all right. I'll be there. Thanks again." "More and likely be some wild sex too." "Now that's really not a problem," says Tom, warming to the idea. "I've been all alone for 6 months. I'll definitely be there. By the way, what should I wear?" "Don't much matter. Just gonna be the two of us." One day, a man was walking through the city when he was approached by a scruffy, disheveled man who asked for a couple of dollars for dinner. The man took out his wallet, pulled out $2 and asked, "If I give you this money, will you spend it on whiskey?" The shabby man shook his head. "No, I stopped drinking years ago." "Will you use it to gamble?" The man continued. "I don't gamble," the stranger replied. "I need every penny just to survive." "How about golf? Will you spend it on greens fees?" the man asked with a smile. "Are you kidding? I haven't played golf in 20 years, the other man exclaimed. The man paused, then said, "Well, I'm not going to give you $2. Instead, I'm going to take you to my home for a terrific dinner cooked by my wife." The scruffy man was shocked. "Won't your wife be upset with you for bringing me home? I'm dirty, and I probably don't smell great." The man grinned and said, "That's all right. I just want her to see what a man who's given up drinking, gambling, and golf looks like." Teacher: "Why didn't you study?" Student: "Well, let me break it down for you. There are 365 days in a year. After taking away 52 Sundays, we're left with 313 days. Now, factor in the 50 days of summer, way too hot to study, and we're down to 2 days. We sleep 8 hours a day, which adds up to 122 days gone. That leaves 141 days. If I spend just 1 hour a day messing around, that's another 15 days gone, leaving us with 126 days. Eating takes up 2 hours a day, so subtract 30 more days, and we're left with 96. Then, I spend 1 hour each day talking to friends and family, which knocks off another 15 days, leaving us with 81. Exams? They easily take 35 days, so we're down to 4. Then come holidays, about 40 days, and now there are just 6 days left. If I get sick for 3 days, we're down to 3 days. Let's say I go out twice. That leaves me with just 1 day to study. But that day, it's my birthday, and that's why I didn't study. 3 nurses walk into a patient's room only to find him unresponsive. The first nurse checks him and notices he's got a serious situation going on downstairs. She turns to the others and says, "Well, he deserves a proper send-off." So she hops on, does her thing, and eventually gets too tired to continue. The second nurse jumps in, takes over, and after a while, she too gets worn out. Now it's the third nurse's turn, but she's hesitant. She says, "I'm on my monthly subscription. It's a bad time." But after some persuasion, she gives in. Midway through the deed, The man suddenly wakes up. The nurses freak out and ask, "What just happened?" He looks around, grins and says, "Thanks, ladies. After 2 jump starts and a blood transfusion, I feel freaking amazing." Grandpa Earl signed up for a gym after he saw a senior influencer doing squats online. He went once, just once. He came home and said, "They told me to do a plank. I told them the only plank I know is the one pirates use to walk." Then they gave him a yoga mat. He laid down, fell asleep, and snored through the whole class. Now he uses the gym bag to store snacks and the yoga mat as a TV dinner tray. He calls it fitness for the soul. 3 men died on Christmas Eve and were met by St. Peter at the pearly gates. "In honor of this holy season," St. Peter said, "you must each possess something that symbolizes Christmas to get into heaven." The Englishman fumbled through his pockets and pulled out a lighter. He flicked it on. "It's a candle," he said. "You may pass through the pearly gates," St. Peter said. The Scotsman reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. He shook them and said, "They're bells." St. Peter said, "You may pass through the pearly gates." The Irishman started searching desperately through his pockets and finally pulled out a pair of women's panties. St. Peter looked at the man with a raised eyebrow and asked, "And just what do those symbolize?" The paddy replied, "These are carols." There's this guy with a crush on a cashier at the grocery store, so he asks her to go on a date, and she says yes. She's got a lot of piercings, and while on the date, the guy asks her what made her decide to get so many piercings. She tells him, "When I'm disappointed with a part of my body, I get a piercing on it." She then says she has a nose piercing because she doesn't like the shape of her nose, and eyebrow piercing because she doesn't like her eyebrows, etc. The guy tells her, "Oh, come on, don't talk about yourself like that. I think you're beautiful." The date then goes really well, and they end up going back to her place and have love. While they're cuddling after sex, the girl with the piercing says very calmly, "I think you should get a piercing on your dick." Is this any good? How can it be improved? Arthur is 75 years old. He's played golf every day since his retirement 15 years ago. One day, he arrives home looking downcast. "That's it," he tells his wife. "I'm giving up golf. My eyesight has become so bad that once I hit the ball, I couldn't see where it went." His wife sympathizes and makes him a cup of tea. As they sit down, she says, "Why don't you take my brother with you and give it one more try?" "That's no good," sighs Arthur. "Your brother is 85. He can't help." "He may be 85, says the wife, "but his eyesight is perfect." So the next day, Arthur heads off to the golf course with his brother-in-law. He tees up, takes a mighty swing, and squints down the fairway. He turns to the brother-in-law and says, "Did you see the ball?" "Of course I did," answers the brother-in-law. "I have perfect eyesight." "Where did it go?" Arthur asks. "I don't remember." A woman asks her husband at breakfast time, "Would you like some bacon and eggs, a slice of toast, and maybe some grapefruit juice and coffee?" He declines. "Thanks for asking, but I'm not hungry right now. It's this he says. It's really taken the edge off my appetite." At lunchtime, she asked him if he would like something. "How about a bowl of soup, homemade muffins, or a cheese sandwich?" He declines. He says, "It's really spoiled my need for food." Come dinner time, she asks if he wants anything to eat. "Would you like a juicy ribeye steak and some scrumptious apple pie? Or maybe a rotisserie chicken or tasty stir-fry?" He declines again. "No," he says. "It's got to be the I'm still not hungry." "Well," she says, "would you mind getting off me? I'm bloody starving." 2 strangers get paired up golfing. They're both pretty avid golfers, so they're playing a speedy round. They play through a couple groups and end up behind a couple ladies further up the fairway. The one chap decides to walk up and ask if they can play through. About halfway towards them, he stops dead and turns around. His partner says, "Why'd you stop?" "Well, when I got close, I realized one was my wife and one was my mistress." The other fellow decides to go inquire on behalf of the duo. He too gets halfway, stops and turns around. As he comes back to his partner, he says, "Small world." A blonde had just been in a terrible car accident. Somehow she climbed out of the wreck without a single scratch and was calmly applying fresh lipstick when the state trooper pulled up. The officer stared at the crumpled mess of metal and said, "Ma'am, your car looks like it got flattened by an elephant. Are you sure you're all right?" The blonde smiled and replied, "Oh, I'm perfectly fine, officer." Still puzzled, the trooper asked, "So, what exactly happened here?" The blonde explained, "Well, officer, it was the weirdest thing. I was just driving along when out of nowhere, this tree jumped right in front of me. So I swerved to miss it, but another tree popped up on the other side. I swerved again, and there was another tree, then another, and another." The officer paused for a moment, then said, "Ma'am, there isn't a single tree on this road for at least 30 miles. That was your air freshener swinging back and forth." One evening, a husband, thinking he was being clever, teased his wife, saying, "Maybe we should start washing your clothes in Slim Fast. It might shave a few inches off your backside." His wife, far from amused, decided she couldn't let such a comment slide without a little payback. The next morning, as the husband pulled out a pair of underwear from his drawer, he noticed a puff of powdery dust fill the air. "What on earth is this?" he muttered, baffled, as he shook them out. "April," he called out to his wife in the bathroom, "why did you put talcum powder in my underwear?" With a sly grin, she replied, "Oh, honey, that's not talcum powder, it's Miracle Grow." A young couple met with their pastor to plan their wedding. When asked if they preferred a traditional or contemporary service, they chose contemporary. On the big day, a terrible storm flooded the streets. The groom had to take a detour, and to keep dry, he rolled up his pants legs and trudged through the water. By the time he reached the church, he was late and soaked. His best man rushed him inside and straight to the altar. As the music faded, the pastor leaned over and whispered, "Pull down your pants." The groom's eyes widened. Reverend, I think I've changed my mind. Let's go with a traditional service." Little Johnny walks up to his aunt and says, "My gosh, Aunt Edna, why are you so darn ugly?" His mother overheard this and pulled Johnny into the kitchen and screamed, "How could you say to your aunt is so darn ugly?" "Because she is," said little Johnny. His mother said, "You go back in there and apologize to her, right now. I mean it. You tell her you're sorry." Little Johnny goes into the living room, walked over to his aunt and said, "Aunt Edna, I am sorry you're so darn ugly." A married couple in their early 60s was out celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary in a quiet, romantic little restaurant. Suddenly, a tiny yet beautiful fairy appeared on their table and said, "For being such an exemplary married couple and for being faithful to each other all this time, I will grant you each a wish." "Ooh, I want to travel around the world with my darling husband," said the wife. The fairy moved her magic wand and, abracadabra, 2 tickets for the new QM2 luxury liner appeared in her hands. Now it was the husband's turn. He thought for a moment and said, "Well, this is all very romantic, but an opportunity like this only occurs once in a lifetime, so I'm sorry, my love. But my wish is to have a wife 30 years younger than me." The wife and the fairy were deeply disappointed, but a wish is a wish. So the fairy made a circle with her magic wand, and abracadabra, the husband was 92 years old. P.S. Fairies are female. The mother-in-law decided to surprise her son and his wife with a quick visit. She rang the doorbell and let herself in. only to find her daughter-in-law standing by the door in a strange outfit. "What are you wearing?" she asked, puzzled. "I'm waiting for my husband to come home," the daughter-in-law replied with a smile. "But that's such an unusual outfit," the mother-in-law exclaimed. "It's my love outfit," the daughter-in-law explained. "My husband loves it, and it makes both of us happy. He'll be home any minute, so I'd appreciate it if you could head out." Feeling a bit bewildered, the mother-in-law left, but she couldn't stop thinking about the love outfit on her way home. When she got back, she decided to give it a try. She put on her nicest clothes, spritzed a bit of perfume, and stood by the door, waiting for her husband. Finally, he walked in and saw her standing there. "What are you up to?" he asked, surprised. "This is my love outfit," she said proudly. He smiled and said, "Well, it could use a little ironing." After his exam, the doctor smiled and said to the elderly man, "Well, you seem to be in good health. Anything on your mind you'd like to ask me about?" The old man leaned in and said, "Actually, yes. After I make love to my wife the first time, I'm all hot and sweaty, but after the second time, I'm cold and chilly." Curious, the doctor examined the elderly wife next and asked if she had any concerns. She shook her head and said everything was fine. "Well," the doctor said, scratching his head, "your husband mentioned something odd. He says after you make love, he's hot and sweaty the first time, but cold and chilly the second time. Any idea why?" The wife rolled her eyes and chuckled. "Oh, that crazy old fart. That's because the first time's usually in August, and the second time's in January." Two elderly folks at trailer estates, he a widower, she a widow, had known each other for years. One evening, at a big community supper, they found themselves sitting across from each other making small talk. Between bites of mashed potatoes, he kept sneaking admiring glances at her, his heart racing like a teenager at prom. Finally, he mustered the courage to ask, "Will you marry me?" She paused for a dramatic 6 seconds, probably weighing the pros and cons, and then, with a smile, said, "Yes. Yes, I will." The rest of the meal went by pleasantly, and they eventually headed back to their respective trailers, happy with their evening. The next morning, though, panic set in. The poor guy couldn't remember if she had said yes or no. He racked his brain, but it was like trying to recall where he put his glasses. Hopeless. Feeling nervous, he picked up the phone and dialed her number. Hi there. I've got a bit of a confession," he started. "I don't remember things as well as I used to, and I was wondering, when I asked you to marry me last night, did you say yes or no?" To his absolute relief, she replied, "Oh, I said yes, dear. I meant it with all my heart." Then after a brief pause, she added, "And I'm so glad you called because I couldn't remember who had asked me."